Welcome, viewers, to today's broadcast. My name remains Paul. Today's date is October the 20th, 2024. As usual, I'm going to title my broadcast Migrating to the US Useful Tips, Part 9G. And the subtitle is H-1B visas. That is the US H-1B visas. As you know, the H-1B visas is very popular amongst various applicants, and so many have actually come into the country through that route, especially those experts in IT and other science-related fields. The H-1B visa is very popular, and for once, it's very popular amongst Indians. They have come into the United States through that route. And so the H-1B visa route is a non-immigrant visa route and is quite popular amongst applicants. And so it's very unique, it's very possible. And so I will try to very quickly streamline the information and give out the tips that can be of help to you. And so if you come across this video and you are a professional in your field, you hold a degree, a master's degree or a PhD in your home country, it doesn't matter where your country is, either you're from Africa, you are from Europe, Asia, or any other part of the world, this particular route is very good for you, especially if you are an expert, a specialized, skilled individual, then this route is important to you. And so I will just go ahead and then explain very quickly and very simply what you require or you need for this particular category, the H-1B visa category of the non-immigrant visa categorization of the U.S. visa opportunities. Okay, so the H-1B visa is a good opportunity. It's possible. So many people have used it to come to the U.S. Now, what is a H-1B visa? A H-1B visa means a temporary work visa that allows the applicant to work in the United States only in specialty occupation that require a high level of special skills, such as tech or IT, engineering, finance, teaching, medicine, and others. So you need a specialized skill for you to be able to be granted a H-1B visa to the United States. However, to get the H-1B visa, the applicant would need an employer or a sponsor who employs labor in the US to file a petition on his or her behalf. Okay? Now, the US employer must file a petition with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services on behalf of this applicant. And this applicant, you can come from any part of the world. And so once you have a sponsor in the US or an employer who is ready to offer you an employment, then that sponsor can go ahead and file this very petition on your behalf so that you can obtain a H-1B visa to come to the US and work within that your specialty, or within those your highly skilled, specialized area of profession. Okay. Now, what are the H-1B visa requirements, or what is called eligibility criteria? Now, the requirements for H-1B visa include: one, a bachelor's degree, or even better, a master's or doctoral degree. In other words, you could have a first degree, a master's degree, or a PhD. Okay. Secondly, you must have proof you have sufficient work experience in that specific field. In other words, you must prove that you are an expert, or you have had so many years of experience working in that particular area. The third point is that your occupation has to be deemed specialized by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. In other words, before you can be considered for H-1B visa, now the USCIS must be able to say that, your skills are specialized. In other words, it's for a special kind of profession. It's a special profession. In other words, you need certain level of skills before you can be allowed to do that work. In other words, you have specialized skills. Okay. Now, what are the essential documents that you will need for this particular category? One, you must have an international passport. At least there should be at least 6 months lifespan remaining on that passport from your home country, wherever you are, wherever you're living, either in Africa, in Asia, or or Europe. You must have at least 6 months remaining on your international passport. Secondly, you must have your educational degrees, certificates, and transcripts. You must be able to showcase your transcripts, your educational qualifications, and of course your certificates. You must have to back them up with evidence, and transcripts are very important here. Thirdly, you must have current employment letter. Your sponsor must have given you an offer of employment. In other words, you must have that written contract which your prospective employer has actually given to you. Number 4 will be previous employment experience documentation. You must be able to show your previous work experiences and what you achieved doing that work in your home country or elsewhere. The number 5 will be labor certification approval. In other words, you need the Department of Labor in the US to certify or approve that you can be employed in the US working as that particular professional. It depends on what your line of specialization is. So the Department of Labor must approve that you actually qualify to be tagged or to be given that specialized recognition because of your expertise in that field. Now, number 6 will be tax returns for the sponsoring US company. In other words, the company in the US must be able to show you or give you their tax return for the previous year. In other words, that document shows that they have met all the requirements as employers of labor, and they would have paid all their required taxes to the government in the preceding year. Also, the number 7 requirement will be correspondence received from Department of Justice. And so the Justice Department would have also approved your skills as being specialized, and also you must have obtained the permission from them to be employed in the US as a specialized expert in that your field. Also, number 8, letter sent to Consular General of your country. It depends on where your country, where you're coming from, or where you have, where you've resided or where you're residing, or let us say your home country. Now there has to be a letter sent to the American embassy in that your country, because that is where you will obtain that visa. In other words, after your sponsor would have gotten approval in the US, after they have filed the petition for you and it's approved. Now the second leg of that process is that you have to now approach the American embassy in your country, and they will go ahead to now process your visas. And if you excuse me, prove it with all the required documentations, then they will issue you with a H-1B visa. Also, the ninth requirement here will be job description with a US sponsoring company. In other words, the company sponsoring you to the US must be able to prove what your job description, in other words, what is it that you'll be doing for them if you come to the US. They must have to, give you must have to present that document to the consular office in your country. And so number 10 will be a current or valid US license. So that US license should either be for your sponsoring company, or if you are going to be doing any job that requires you to have a license, then you would have gotten that license as well. Number 11 will be resume along with supporting certificates. In other words, you have to prepare a very good resume or an enlarged CV, and you have to also provide all the information in support of whatever your claims might be in that your resume or CV, as the case may be. Number 12 will be payment for processing and issuance fee in the form of a demand draft. This will be all the necessary fees associated with the application from the stage of the petition up until you attend the interview in your home country. So you should be able to have all the receipts of all the required payments you have made, during and all through the process. And you should also have colored passport size photos. Okay, passport size photos, required according to the required measurement. And you should also have all your marriage. Supposing you're married, then you should have all of those marriage certificates, that are required and all that. Okay, and so there are different professions. I have to mention very briefly what type of professions, that you can get that may be able or that can sponsor a H-1B visa for an applicant. So if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're a fashion designer, if you're a teacher, if you're an IT professional, if you're a financial expert, if you have every other qualifications apart from these, but you are an expert in that, then you can be qualified for this. And your prospective employer must initially, and as part of the petition to be filed, must submit a labor condition describing the terms and conditions of their employment contract with you to the Department of Labor. So they're going to also seek permission from the Department of Labor, so they will have to file all of the contracts, what the specifications are, and every other thing that has to go with the job. And also there should be a lack of an American citizen equivalent who can take up the role. So part of the petition should also state that within the US that they can't find any suitable hands that can do that kind of job. It's part of the application process. Okay, so your sponsors must be able to showcase that. They must be able to support with evidence to the Department of Labor before they are able to get the certification approved. Okay, so they must have to submit all the evidence and proof that, look, this individual has specialized knowledge, and within the United States it's not easy to get people of his skills to perform that particular job. So in which case, it's necessary that that specialized skill is approved so that the applicant can be allowed under H-1B visa to come and work in the United States. So you got to prove that it's not easy to get any of such persons within the US to do that particular job. Okay. And so yes, that's part of the requirement. And like I said initially, you will also have to submit your marriage certificate, especially if you have dependents. You have to submit all of the documents that are necessary. If you have children, and then your wife and all your family members who may be traveling with you, all the required documents you have to submit to your sponsors. And all of these also might be required in the case of you having to attend the physical or oral interview at the consulate, that is the American embassy in your home country, right? You might need all of these documents as well. And so, as usual, the next point will be, what are the some of the specific requirements for if you have to take pictures. These ones are not very necessary. The usual size pictures for American visas, they are usually slightly different from the standard photos. Okay, so you have to follow the visa specifications online, or when you process your Form DS-160, that would enable you to attend the interview in your home country. So they have the picture specifications and all that. So I advise that you got to follow those specifications. And very importantly, you must know that it must be a recent passport, not later than 6 months ago. The background must be white and clear. Your face has to be clear. You don't have to wear glasses or something, or you don't have to wear uniforms or something like that. And then religious outfit, you must be clear not to cover your face and all that. So now, what are the H-1B visa application process? How does it work in real life? Now, the application process for a H-1B visa is quite complicated and time consuming. Both the employer and the employee need to meet certain legal requirements. Here's a breakdown of the process in simple terms. Now, number one is that you must find an employer willing to sponsor a H-1B visa. And so you must have an employer willing to employ you and to file a petition for you on your behalf, and then follow the due process. It says to begin the process, you must have to have an employer willing to sponsor your H-1B visa and submit a labor conditions approval. So it's very important that you file in that petition, and that petition you have to file it on Form I-129. You have to use Form I-129 for that. Now, you have to check for H-1B visa eligibility. Now, in this case, you have to check all the prerequisites, all the requirements like I enumerated before. And so those requirements, you have to be sure you have met all of them, and then before your employer can be sure to secure that. So sometimes, because of the numbers that apply for this particular visa, sometimes there's always a lottery done. You know, the government must always look at the number of applications and of course the limited spaces available, and they could pick as the case may be. So what is a H-1B labor condition application? So the labor condition application is a document that employers submit to the U.S. Department of Labor who are asking to hire foreign workers. Now, this document will describe the terms and conditions of employment, including pay and responsibilities for the applicant, and shows that the sponsors now couldn't find an American citizen to do the job. Okay, now once the Department of Labor approves this labor condition application, the employer can then move forward and apply for the worker's visa with the USCIS. In other words, like I said initially, they must have to prove that they could not, it wasn't possible for them to get any suitable hands in the US, and so as a result, they are now seeking to bring this foreigner into the country to do this particular job. And so the Department of Labor will have to go through whatever the petition they have submitted and then go ahead to make the necessary approvals. So once it's approved, then the employer will go ahead to now begin to process the whole thing. So now, how much does it cost? How much it costs depends on, sometimes, they have different routes. You could have premium. In other words, you want to process it, express process it, and all that. So, so you have the premium processing. Employer stroke applicant is about over $2,000 for that particular one. And all that. So all in all, you must be able to follow the process, and then your sponsor is able to pay all the required fees and all that. Now, what are the benefits of a H-1B? What are the benefits? Now, there's no limit. Number one, no limit on the number of H-1B visas you can apply for. In other words, you can apply for as many H-1B visas as you are able to get a sponsor. If one fails, you can apply for another one and all that. So you can apply for H-1B as many times as you can, and different professions and all that. Now, the H-1B visa also opens the door for a green card. In other words, the H-1B visa is dual intent, meaning that you can move from H-1 and then cross over and become a permanent resident. In other words, you can apply for your green card after you've been issued with your initial H-1B. So once you have stayed in the country for that length of time and you are able to extend it maybe, and then before the second extension, before it runs off, then you are able to make an application for your green card. Okay? Now, but if that doesn't happen and you're unable to extend it, then there's always, you might need to return to your home country and things like that. So what is the validity period for a H-1B visa? So when it comes to your H-1B visa, it's valid for a certain period of time, usually 3 years. In other words, that initial approval has a 3-year lifespan for you to remain in the US and work as a specialized professional. It has the initial application comes with a lifespan of 3 years, but can be extended up to 6 with the help of the American Competitiveness in the 21st Century Act. In other words, after that initial 3 years and you think that you want it extended, then you might need to approach the American Competitiveness in the 21st Century Act. When you go through the process in that act, it tells you how to extend it. Either you could use the same sponsors, or if you have another sponsor or employer willing to employ you and extend it for you. So all of the steps are in the act, so you follow it, and then it's always advisable for you to get the services of a specialist, immigration specialist or attorney, so that the journey can be a lot easier, and then they will start thinking ahead of time, and so that you don't run into hitches. And so all of these processes and procedures, they're all there. But the interesting thing is that there are specialists who do this. So you will need advice, you will need support to make the necessary applications on your behalf as and when due. It's not a process that you can do by yourself, unless you understand the immigration process. But to save time and to make sure you don't have issues along the line, it's advisable for you to get the services of an immigration expert or an attorney completely. So that would help you. That would be so good for you, so that it helps you to navigate through and then avoid all the pitfalls and all that. Now, of course, the initial approval is for 3 years, and that can be extended as well. Okay. Now, okay. So the information here is, however, if your H-1B visa is not extended before the end of the 6th year, you have to take a timeout outside the US for 1 year. But the truth of the matter is that if it's extended for another 3 years, now, according to the immigration rules, if you have lived and worked in the US for 5 years, now after that 5th year, then you are able to apply for a green card, as the case may be. So if you have gotten the first 3 years and then it was extended, so you've done 3 years, and then the second extension will be a second 3 years. So once you've done 2 years of that extension, that makes it 5 years you've worked and lived in the US, then you can apply for a green card. So you might not need to wait for the 6th year. No, once you are in the country for 5 years, and within those 5 years you were working and all that, contributing to the economy, then you have the right to now apply for a green card. Okay. And then an attorney, an immigration expert can help you organize that. Now, so also your dependents too are also allowed. So your loved ones are also allowed to stay in the United States if you're a H-1B visa holder, and they can apply for the H-4 visa and join you, in the US. Now, the spouses and unmarried children who are 21 years and below can stay as long as your visa is valid. However, they won't be able to work. Fortunately, children are not prohibited from attending school in the US. So you need to know that your dependents, your wife and your children, can join you on H-4, but the catch there is that they may not be able to work, but the children will be allowed to go to school. So that is a drawback for H-1B, because it's a non-immigrant visa. So it's always advisable, when you come in and you're working now and your dependents join you, now they now have to meet with the requirements. They can file separately to be allowed to work. In other words, they can apply for work authorization, separately. And if you have a good attorney or immigration experts, then they're able to do what the needful for them to be able to be engaged meaningfully. Because it will be difficult for them just to stay just like that without working. So they might need to file for authorization to work separately from your own visa status. Okay, so but your children of school age are allowed to go to school under the H-1B visa arrangement. So, but for those of your dependents who are over 21, now it might be difficult for them to find work. So in which case, they might have to file for authorization to work separately. Okay, but all of these things are possible once you have an immigration attorney that can put you through. Okay, now sometimes it's also necessary to point out that there's a cap on H-1B. In other words, the government, has a limitation of the number of people it will admit yearly on a H-1B visa. Okay, so that is how it goes. So sometimes the government must limit the number of people it brings in through H-1B on for a particular. It depends on the profession involved. Okay. Now, what are the common reasons for denial of a H-1B? There are common reasons why a H-1B visa can be denied. They include: one, failure to establish in the initial petition that the position being filled qualifies as a specialty occupation as provided for by immigration laws. In other words, the initial petition did not specify that the job the applicant is coming to do is specialized, or if they claimed it was specialized, now it does not follow the laid down rules, or it's not recognized under the immigration laws. So in which case, it's a ground for denial of the H-1B visa. Number two, failure to establish proof of valid employer-employee relationship with the H-1B beneficiary. In other words, the beneficiary and the sponsors are not able to establish that employer-employee relationship. In other words, the immigration officers at the consulate office in the foreign country, they were not able to, the proof, there was no, believable proof from either the beneficiary or the sponsor that they have that employer-employee relationship. So as a result, the H-1B visa can be denied. Number three, failure to establish that the H-1B employee will be engaged in a specific assignment for the requested employment period that aligns with the beneficiary's qualifications. In other words, the beneficiary might have qualifications, but they don't align with the claims of the employer. Maybe the beneficiary has expertise in something else, whereas what the sponsors have filed is something else. So in this case, it's a denial. Number four, petitioning employer's failure to supply proof that the H-1B employee fulfilled the requirements for the specific specialty occupation. Like I said, maybe the employers or the sponsors cannot prove that the beneficiary has met with all the specified requirements for that particular skill or for that particular job that the sponsors are applying for. In that case, it's a ground for denial. Number five, failure to show that the H-1B beneficiary properly maintained their current visa status. In other words, whatever the status is, either they had visited the U.S. before or not, that the beneficiary may have violated the U.S. Immigration rules before that application. Maybe they checked the system and they saw that the beneficiary at some point may have violated some immigration laws to the U.S. And if that is the case, it's a ground for denial. Number six, failure to provide sufficient proof of firmly establishing that employers had specific work assignments for H-1B employees to be placed in-house for the employment period. In other words, the sponsors are not able to prove that they have enough assignments or that they have specialized roles for the applicant, in which case they don't have any jobs for the applicant. So in which case it's a ground for denial. Failure to show proof that employers have a properly certified labor condition application from the Department of Labor corresponding to the said. In other words, that the Department of Labor had issued an approval for that specified job. In other words, they didn't obtain any valid approvals from the Department of Labor, and that is a ground for denial. Number 8, failure to establish that the H-1B employee was eligible for an AC-21 benefits or alternately an H-1B position. In other words, yet again, the beneficiary has failed to justify the position based on certain requirements from the government. Employers' failure to provide a detailed itinerary with a petition requiring services to be performed in 2 or more locations. In other words, that the employer could not also fulfill some of the requirements under the law. Now, lastly, number 10, employees' failure to pay all the required H-1B filing fees, including the Workforce Improvement Act of 1998 and the American Competitiveness fees. Now, the beneficiary failed to pay all the required fees or licenses that are required for that approval. Okay, so that is so with all of this information, it is possible for H-1B visa, to be approved for an applicant, but also there are also reasons that can lead to a denial. Okay, so if you're out there and you have skills and you want to follow that route, there are agents who can help you, but make sure all your documentations are correct and you are able to prove beyond doubt that you are actually a skilled or highly skilled, specialized individual in your profession. Thank you for listening, and like I said, and always I will appeal, please follow me on YouTube, on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and share, like, and comment. Until I come your way again, I remain your very good friend, Paul. Thank you, and bye for now.